Game face on then.
Game face on. We are live. Quick sip of coffee, Mike, and a welcome back, Mike and Gus. Good to see you both. We've got two mics on the screen at the moment because it's coming up with Mike and Mike. It's been quite a few months since you've seen your wonderful faces. Good to see you again. We spoke quite a lot, kind of summer last year in preparation for all things virtual London Marathon, or we didn't even know at that time if it was going to be virtual or not. We did some content, some podcasts, and we are back now. I kind of thought we'd have a review with everyone, what our takings were from last year, what the event was like, what the world is looking like now, and kind of how these next 7-8 months will look for people to get them all on that start line. So yeah, welcome back, Mike. How you getting on, buddy?
Cheers, Phil. Yeah, good, thanks. Just I've been doing much looking at my year ahead in terms of training as well, kind of having a look at what events I might want to do this year. So starting to plan out some of my training, just looking at base miles really, and even a bit of strength and conditioning work in the background, just trying to get some leg strength going. Sure we can talk about all that as we go, but yeah, just nice and easy at the moment, and today's a rest day and being kind to myself for once. So
yeah. Very holistic, man. I like that. Very mature, holistic. Very good. And you guys, how you getting on?
Yeah, fine. Probably very similar to everyone else. Being pretty quiet on the social front, but just cracking on with the stuff you can do. Lots of walks. That's about it, really.
Yeah. I've pretty much completed my entire town. I don't know how many times over. It's like you get to your end of your driveway and you're like, is it left or right today? And then honestly, there are so many obviously permutations, directions you can go, but you just do all of them. And honestly, you can pinpoint, if you've got like an hour free, 2 hours free, 3 hours free, you know exactly where you need to go and how long it will be for you to be back on that time. It's I'm sure everyone's looking forward to going further afield and kind of exploring a little bit more. But yeah, we don't need to talk much more about it. It's been tricky, right? It's been tough times for a long period of time. And I was really looking at the videos that we did last summer, which were actually very good, and it's all the same stuff that's very relevant now. When we were talking about kind of training plans and motivation and discipline for an event that may or may not happen, it's the same sort of thing now. People are struggling with motivation and discipline, and all the content we put together back then, it's all the same right now. People are, we know there's an event this time round, we know that there's going to be a London Marathon, whereas until August last year, it was up and down, and would it happen, wouldn't it happen, and that affect people's motivation to actually put on their trainers and do anything. We then didn't have discipline because we were juggling homeschooling and stresses and jobs and finances and all the rest of it. And what the London Marathon did was brilliant by actually putting on a virtual event. It was awesome because it gave people that hope, it gave them a why, and it made them feel part of a community. And the event was incredible. So I massively applaud the London Marathon for putting it together. The content's great, so we can get people to revisit that, or we can just go again now. I think we have got an event. There's 50,000 people in a physical London Marathon. There's 50,000 people going to be doing the virtual event, which was amazing. And we can talk about that shortly. So 100,000 people will be on a physical or virtual start line on the 3rd of October, which is super exciting for a number of reasons. It's been a lot of closure for people. It's always been for me a massive day of fundraising, but also a therapy session. I think people that have been on a journey since last year, they'd have been thinking about London Marathon for 2 years for a physical event. And in that time, a lot has happened, a lot of emotion, a lot of things going on in people's personal lives. So I think when people run down that mile, that last bit, I think it's going to be a very, very emotional day. So I think we now know we've got an event. The content we put out isn't about motivating people to move for an event that may or may not happen. It is going to happen. At worst, it could be a 100,000 person virtual event. Who knows? But we've got an event, so people need to go, okay, cool. We've got an event now happening. What do I do? I'm still playing catch up from putting on a stone over Christmas. I'm not really doing much. Where do I start? Do I need to find a training plan? What do I do? And that's kind of why we're jumping on a call now to welcome people back and just outline that we'll be doing regular videos to talk all things training and performance and the race day itself. But right now and in the next kind of month or so, it has always been health before performance. Is if you don't know where to start with those basic foundations of health. You know, how's your basic nutrition? How are you sleeping? What's your environment like? Are you spending too much time on your phone? How's your gut health? Or are you actually getting the benefits of exercise rather than training? How's your stress management? All these things need to be looked at now. So I think we're ahead of the curve in terms of people thinking about training for London Marathon. People shouldn't even be thinking about training. It's now, let's spend the next month or two exercising if you haven't done already. Now, after the call on Monday, Boris, it's like there's hope now. There's some sort of way out of this, and we can start piecing this together. So that's where my head is at. What do you think?
I think, yeah, I agree. I think there's people can see like a light at the end of the tunnel now in terms of the lockdown. And to a degree, people have probably, just written off any events this year, like already in the back of their head. They're probably just thinking that's so far away that they're not even thinking about it. They're kind of just awaking from a deep hibernation that happened between November and like February. I think I certainly know that now the weather has changed and my mood has massively improved. And I think people have been in a bit of a funk just in general. A lot of my clients, people just have kind of got to the end of their tether with it, but just the flick in the temperature, the flick in the weather this week, my own mood has got like infinitely better. Everyone I'm speaking to is like, things are happening, So it's maybe just now starting to realize or wake up to the fact that there are things going to be happening this year, and probably just starting to take some ownership of that process, not delaying it. Now's the time to start planning. So yeah.
No, awesome, mate. I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's that hibernation piece, certainly. And just to go back to the virtual event while it's fresh in my mind. So I did it in October, and it was far tougher than I thought it was. I think it was amazing that the London Marathon did this, put it on, and it was a spectacle. And those 37,000 plus people around the world who did it, they needed it, and the response was brilliant. And also, we got a Guinness World Record certificate because we were part of the event, which is great. Which is another, and those people that are doing it this year, well, they're going to get that as well. If there's 50,000 people planned on doing it, I imagine. So, my takeaways were the London Marathon is awesome for putting this on when people said it wouldn't happen. They did such a good job. The charities needed it, the runners needed it, they needed it, and it was such a great event. We had 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds to do it. I just took that pressure off. A big issue that people have doing the physical London Marathon is, can I do it? And I've always said, of course you can do it. Once you've dropped the ego of walking it or running it or whatever, you can do this event comfortably. And it's proven that we can do it because the vast majority of those people that ran in October walked a lot of it, and enjoyed it and still got the same medal and got the same achievement, got all the same things that people got running a sub 4 hour marathon. So that's a huge takeaway for people. And one that I want to carry on getting the narrative out there because I want people on that start line. Because apart from getting a stress factor, there's not many reasons why people can't be on the start line in October, from my point of view. So now runners know that they can walk, and there's no shame in that. And actually, it is a celebration whether you walk, run it, sprint it, crawl it. It's a celebration of going through a process of start to finish. So, yeah, what did you learn from it? What were your takeaways from it? What you saw with clients or social media?
Anything from you, Gus? I've got a few thoughts.
But you go first, and then I'll go.
I think people just, being kind to themselves last year. It was a tough year for everyone. There's no shame in how you complete a marathon. Like, I've never done a marathon, and I consider myself to be a pretty good run, like an okay runner. But I've never done a marathon. So anyone that has done a marathon in my book is already like, they're like up here compared to me. So like, I just think don't stress about the time, and the journey people go on as runners is as soon as they do that first marathon, automatically it's natural human instinct to think about the next step. How do I get better? What do I do to improve that? Well, I'd say that's 90 90% of people, 95% of people. But, you know, last year, if you complete the marathon, this year, let's, you know, just focus on getting started at the beginning. Just get some volume, as we call it. You know, it doesn't have to be very difficult to start with. Just start, and then you know, if things are going well, then you can engage with the likes of you, Phil, myself, and Gus, and we can discuss how to get that time better if it's relevant. But there's no pressure. Don't worry. Just get going.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. Gus?
I think the nature of the one last year didn't feel, in some ways, real. A lot of people heard the same kind of message quite regularly of it. Didn't feel particularly real to do it. So it almost took, as you just said, like took the pressure off. And while it would be, you know, nice to run with, you know, thousands of people watching and an atmosphere and stuff like that, I think for some people it was actually almost a positive that it wasn't like as like big time. It wasn't. It felt more not as real as it usually would, and then for that reason people didn't stress as much. Obviously, the fact that it kept getting pushing back, people were probably actually training for longer, and maybe not even with as much structure. So you'd have a structured training point, and then obviously the marathon got cancelled, and then you get another like a potential date, and then it gets pushed back. And between these times, a lot of people I spoke to didn't just stop running altogether, but their training was far more like, if I feel good today, I'm going to go and do a longer run. If I don't feel good, I'm not going to beat myself up over the fact I don't do one. Which is just probably a healthier way to train, probably more enjoyable. And it builds up that kind of tolerance to running over a longer period of time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a flip. It's almost like a more novice approach is they see a training plan and people think they have to stick to those specific sessions. But as you get more like experienced in anything, you realize how your body feels, and you know when to push and when not to, or when to train and when to actually have a rest. And it sounds like from what Gus has just said that it allowed people just to relax and enjoy it for the process that it was, whereas normally they're thinking so much about the outcome that they think the only way they can get to the outcome is by sticking to what is in that plan, and that's not the case.
That's so true. So true. I think that's a gift, having that body awareness when you can know yourself and have the confidence to go, plan says do something, but actually I feel like 2 out of 10, not going to do this, I'll do something else. If you have that confidence to say, to have that flexibility and to change your own plan, that's leveling up your own life. You know, that's being able to understand stress levels. And Gus, you said it first, stress. I think it took a lot of stress away. There's a massive stress on race day at London Marathon. You've got, you know, it's been on your mind for months. When you get off the train at Greenwich and you're walking into Greenwich Park, and there are tens of thousands of people, and it's like first day of school. You're looking around, it's everyone's shuffling along, doesn't know anyone, not making eye contact with anyone. You've got someone next to you in bright new trainers, and the self-doubt is there. It's very stressful. Then you've got bag drop, start line. You got the stress of kind of meeting loved ones at certain points. Will they see me? Will I not see me? There's that horrible time metric of basement of success of I should be able to do under 4 hours or whatever it might be, whatever time metric you put on your first London Marathon. It's an unnecessary stress in my opinion. So it did take away a lot of that stress. You know, I'm chuffed. I did it with my partner. We've got our frame. We've got our medals in the frame, pictures of us in there. Will there be recency bias? No one knows that we walked that a lot of that marathon. No one has to know. We've got a medal saying we did it. And that stress, honestly, on that Monday morning, I've said this for years, every single London Marathon runner on a Monday morning will be hobbling down the stairs, going to work or doing the school drop-off, have the medal around their neck, bursting with pride. The first thing people say to you is, you ran the marathon, what time did you do? Is the only thing people ever say. And honestly, it doesn't matter what number you give back to them, you won't get the response back that you want. Even if you did a 3 hour something, the person that's asking that question has never done the marathon, doesn't know anything, but just knows that it should be a sub 4, or some guy did it in under 2 hours, and whatever your time was, 5 hours 30 minutes, it's pretty poor. So it almost deflates you. So when you get rid of this time metric success rating, it just takes that stress away. And I think a lot of people that did the event in October, you're right, they can go, I've got some experience here. I know I can do this in this time. That whole saying of, I wish I knew then what I know now. Well, we've got the luxury of doing that. You've got some level of experience. You've got some data points. Now's the time to kind of is steadily be kind to yourself and grow this. Some people might not have done much for the last couple of months. That's okay. That's cool. That's okay. But what can you do now to implement healthy habits for the next month or two? Then you can start building up your training volume. But at the moment, see how you feel. Don't make an excuse to be lazy, not do anything, but just get moving. That's the absolute priority right now. So it was also the virtual event. Yeah. Very, very cool. So we've got an event, London Marathon, happening in October. What should people be doing right now? We're kind of end of Feb, start of March time. What should people be focusing on now?
So I think looked at how far is that away. So if you assume that the majority of people are going to run something like 20 miles as their longest training run, ballpark figure, if you're very experienced, you might run slightly more or less. If it's your first one, you might decide you only want to do a 16 mile as your longest run. But if you take 20 miles to be the average, if you were going to build up at, not that anyone will, but you just add a mile a week from zero, if you started in 2 months from today, you would hit 20 miles by the 12th of September, which is roughly when you're going to be peaking. So you basically now have that if you start 25th of April and you did 0 miles on that week, and then on the 2nd of May, your goal for the week is to run 1 mile, and you just did that again and again and again, adding 1 mile each time, you would get to 20 miles by a sensible time point. Now, if you've not run before, just adding 1 mile each time is going to quite quickly add up to way more than you've ever done before. But it gives you like this 8-week, 2-month window of even if it's just following a couch to 5K program, or if you don't want to follow a program and you just want to be relatively consistent with your mileage, the first things I'd say is sit down and write down what's going to be realistic for you, not times or distances, just how much time do I have per week to make time for myself and go for a run. If you finish work early midweek on a Wednesday, then potentially you can do one, however long you want it to be, 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever, on a Wednesday, and then you might have some time at the weekend as well. So I would take this 2 months to not worry about accumulating too much mileage, just going out, getting into the habit of regularly walking or running or a bit of both. And ideally, if you do use something like Strava, or even if you don't want to post it publicly, you kind of keep it to yourself, just keep notes of when things felt good, when things felt bad, because then by the time you get to late April, early May, where you're going to be looking at gradually increasing things, you've got a library of information that you can look back and say, well, this for me works well and this doesn't. Because you can look at all the evidence around running and performance, or just building up your mileage, and the evidence is a really good barometer for what works for most people. But you'll always have the group of people who don't respond to that, or the group of people who do respond very well to that. And there's no real way to decide that without a little bit of experiment. So I'd say now is a good experimentation phase.
Yeah. Like go and train in the morning and the evening and see how you feel. Like I my times in the morning are so much different to when I train in the afternoon. Like considerably different. Like my metabolic pathways take at least 2 hours in the morning to get going. So if someone says to me, "Do you want to go for a run tomorrow morning?" I'm always like, "Can we wait until the afternoon?" Like, I just feel so.
That's really valuable information to learn now, because if you find that out on day 7 of your marathon training program and you've planned to do most of your midweek runs before work, you're straight away like, this is going to be horrible. I hate running in the morning. Even if it's just finding things out like that, like, okay, I despise running in the morning, but after work, actually, it's a nice way for me to switch off and draw a line under the day, especially if you're working from home and you don't have that separation of work and life. And it doesn't matter which way round it works, but find what works for you now. And then when your training starts, you're in a better position to enjoy it rather than do it.
And get out and enjoy it, right? Like just right now, go out and see how it feels. Wait for the weather. Don't go out. You don't have to go out in any weather. Go out when it feels right. But like Gus says, start to just build up a bit of running into your plan, and work out. Experimentation is really good with this. And the other thing is, if you don't like running in the morning, the London Marathon is always like dead early in the morning. So you need to think about a strategy for how you're going to run a London Marathon in the morning. But that.
I was thinking just that. I was thinking that too, mate. But super important points. You've got to find time that's not going to impact your diary and time with family and work and all the rest of it. So it is really planning ahead. But Gus, that's awesome. Actually, I didn't even think about working back like that. But it takes away that overwhelm. You start at 0 miles on the 25th of April, which typically would be when London Marathon would have been around that sort of weekend. And building up a mile a week, it takes away that overwhelm massively. Wouldn't advise everyone to do that, but there's this window now of, again, enjoying it. Get that enjoyment back. Get those health benefits through exercise. I love listening to podcasts. I like listening to music. People talk about running naked. Obviously illegal, but taking away the stress of Garmin watches and time and all the rest of it, and just allowing yourself to be free, not streaking like Will Ferrell in Old School.
In Old School,
everyone's doing it. But I think just enjoy it. Get a podcast. It's a great way to melt 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. And you're right on that Sunday morning thing. I'm okay in the mornings. But if you're not a morning person, it's something you need to condition yourself for. But that's later with your longer runs, longer London Marathon training runs. You do need to be getting up early, practicing your pre-marathon training protocols, all the rest of it. But that's stuff that will come. At the moment, just don't stress yourself out unnecessarily.
I think one of the key takeaways from last year as well was that you were pristinely, you looked fantastic, and me and Gus were just, we just got out of bed, we had no idea what was going on.
People should go back
the game a little bit this year.
I can see that. Very nice. Yeah, honestly, I'm hiding a lot here. I'm waking up in the morning like Krusty the Clown. My hair's up here and out here, and I don't know what's going to happen. I've still got a good 4, 6, 8 weeks before I can get this thing addressed. But a lot of what we covered last time was really good stuff, and we and I think I'd encourage people just to go back and watch it, listen to it. But like I said, we've discussed this a lot, and we're going to put together a lot of content, a lot of videos, a lot of things that people can do from home, strength and conditioning work, highlight areas of dysfunction at home, and also give you guys there as an outlet for them to get in touch with,
So I thought maybe if we just touch base on the schedule over the next few weeks. We made some notes, didn't we? And I don't know. So we were thinking maybe the first talk would be around the benchmarking process, like how people set their current status and understanding where they currently are at and where they want to get to, and how they progress from there. Then there's this whole, I know what Gus's eyes are going to do now when I say this dirty word, periodization. But Gus describes that as simply organized training. So how do you plan your training is what we're going to talk about in another talk. Then training blocks, sort of, moving on from that, basically how you discern the different periods of your training, your different blocks, and what they entail. And then we were looking at going into more of some of the holistic areas, like mental health side of things, sports psychology, Phil, from your side, and maybe some of the gut health stuff and all the other aspects that you're kind of talking to people about regularly. So yeah, I think those 3, maybe 4 key topics are probably going to give us enough content for about 7 years, I reckon.
But all great stuff. It's all great stuff, and there's more to running a London Marathon than just running 26.2 miles, right? That's the easy bit. The goal always is to get people on that start line. And there's 3 things that do that. One is to train early and structure it intelligently. I won't say periodized because I don't want Gus to eye roll. Secondly, it's to fundraise early. The sooner you tell the world you're doing something and you get hard-earned cash, particularly now, onto a just giving page or whatever it might be, the more likely you're going to do everything you can to get on that start line without being a martyr. And thirdly, it's getting in touch as soon as there's a problem. Physically, you guys are there, or mentally, or whatever it might be. As soon as there's a problem, get in touch with someone. Don't wait 2 weeks. Contact a doctor. Better not contact the doctor because they're going to be overrun with things that are going on right now. Weeks go into months, and then suddenly you're back to square one, and that motivation, discipline goes out the window. So those 2 things we'll target on. The content we've just discussed, what you've brought up, is perfect. Where are you right now? How do you intelligently build it up? And the holistical thing, I love. It's, my goodness me, if I knew I was talking about gut health, breathing techniques, and all the rest of it when I was in my 20s or just qualified, I'd be like, you've got to be joking. Harder, faster, stronger, man up, come on, all this sort of stuff. It would have been my narrative. But as you get older and you immerse yourself in an event like the London Marathon, and you get to understand people and where they are, and particularly right now what they're going through, it's much more holistic. What is your screen time doing on your phone? How are you sleeping? All these sort of things, unless they're in place, it doesn't matter how well you train, you're not going to get the benefits for it. It's irrelevant. So looking forward to kind of chewing the fat with all that stuff, really.
Sounds great. Looking forward to getting started. So it'd be great. Awesome.
And what video buyers of you guys, how can people find you if they need you now? Because some people might be feeling, I've got this persistent knee thing, or since the virtual marathon, I've been feeling this. How can they get in touch with you guys?
A simple way would be, we have an Instagram account called Technique Health. And there's also, we have a website which is being rebuilt at the moment, which will be techniquehealth.org. But in the meantime, it's techniquephysio.com. So the reason we're moving to Technique Health is because we're opening up a whole host of new services such as osteopathy, health and fitness, and those types of things. So we've had to make it a bit more all-encompassing. But Instagram's an easy way. And then I can also supply our contact details to you, Phil, maybe to put onto a little caption at the end, perhaps.
I can try that. I'm a Neanderthal when it comes to clever things like that, but I'll do what I can. But again, people who watch this, you guys are great. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and it's just nice to work with good people that understand a different side of training and training for the London Marathon, or what a charity runner or a charity fundraiser is. It's a very different animal, and it's very much it's supporting and understanding. And I know you guys have got a wealth of knowledge and the empathy side as well. I'm sure you've been in a lot of their shoes and you understand what they're going through. So pleasure as always to speak with you guys. Any other business, or should we pause it there and then onwards and upwards?
Leave it there, I reckon.
Love you guys. Thank you ever so much, and see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.